followers of Chunwai Life around the world. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's going to be an interesting night. Joining me with me here is Philip Golingai, who is a seasoned watcher of frogs in Sabah, and that he's also a political analyst who'll be talking a lot about how politicians behave in Sabah, and that he has been really busy crisscrossing Sabah to follow up the events that will take place in Sabah soon, the coming state election. And for this Facebook discussion, I told him I'll buy him a frog porridge if he would to join us here tonight. And he has willingly accepted the in this little price for coming to our talk tonight. So Philip, we shall keep this discussion, this banter light and easy. First question I have to ask you is that, why is it that when we talk about defections, everybody else seems to think only of Sabah? There was this social media posting that went around that they had this Tugu Katak, which went around, but it happens in other states. Why is it that when people talk about frogs, they only think of Sabah politicians?
Okay, first of all, I'm Sabahan, but I'm not a frog. And I feel insulted when you send me that Tugu Katak, because that doesn't represent Sabah. It's an insult to Sabahans. Okay, to answer your question, why do we have that image? I think it's because our own politician perpetuate that image. I just give you, today, petition, this is what he said. He said that the jumping culture was something to be ashamed of, as such thing did not happen in other states like Sarawak. So what I did is I messaged my colleague, my friend Sharon from Sarawak, and she gave me a long list of political frogs from Sarawak. So I just read the list. Okay, Sri Aman, Sri Aman MP jumped from PRS to PSB. Puncak Borneo MP, Willy Mongin, he jumped from PKR to Team Azmin. Then you have Seratok MP, PKR to Azmin faction. Selangor MP, that is the famous Barubian, from PKR to PSB. Then you have Lubuk Antu MP, Juga Muyang, from PKR to Independent. And then the list is very long until my colleague Sharon asked me, how far back do you want to go? And then she listed a long list. That's a long list. So my point is, even Sabahan politicians, they say that we should be ashamed that it doesn't happen in other states, but they got it very wrong.
But I think the difference with other states is that in Sabah, governments actually collapse because of these defections. Give an example. We have the Warisan state government, which was formed because 6 Barisan National State Assemblymen jumped to Warisan. And if it was not for this defection, it would not have been possible for Warisan government to reform. But I think that different. But yet, we see the Warisan, the state representative, talking as if that well, the condemning frogs which were trying to topple the Warisan government through Musa. So what is your views on that? Everybody seems to be a frog in Sabah.
Yes, maybe 50 to 60%. But to answer your question again, today, Warisan leader, he said that Sabahans have jumped party a lesson during the upcoming state election by voting them out. But my big question is, didn't Warisan encourage party jumping by accepting them? At least 21 assemblymen have jumped to Warisan and then to UKO. Okay, so the thing is, like Sabahan will ask them, bukan kau kah yang pelihara katak? Meaning, when you the one who pelihara, or what's the word, katak. So it's kind of hypocritical in Sabah that you whacked jumpers and you said, let's kick them out. But how about those parties that accepted frogs? Okay, and then going back to your question, the other thing you said that it looks like as if in Sabah, only Sabah government is toppled. But I disagree with you. You look at this year, okay, Johor Fair, Johor fell because PKR assemblyman jumped. And then you look at Malacca. Malacca, the most famous guy to jump is from DAP. He's called YB Hawk. He has jumped. And then you go to Perak. The famous guy who jumped and caused the government to be toppled is Trono assemblyman, that is Paul Yong, who's facing some charges in court. And also same in Kedah. So I disagree with you. There were 4 states that fell, and it's because of frogs. No, only Sabah.
But Philip, I think that the difference is that in Sabah is that in Sabah, most of the politicians will have joined at least 3 parties in their political career. And in the case of Jeffrey Golingai, he probably holds the Malaysian Book of Records for having joined 6 political parties. And if UMNO had not rejected him, he would have joined 7 parties. So that's the difference between Semenanjung and Sabah.
Okay, interesting. You asked me a question. Coincidentally, I met Dr. Jeffrey at his house in Kota Kinabalu, and I had an interview with him. And guess what was the interview about? It was, okay, yeah, it's about frogs. So I asked him, I said, are you a political frog? And his answer is no. And he gave me 2 reasons. For him, this is his definition. He's not a frog because, number 1, he did not jump and cause a government to fall. That's number 1. Number 2, for him, it's not about jumping. It's not about jumping from one party to the other party. But for him, his struggle is the same. For him, it's about the struggle. His struggle is about Sabah rights. Tell you a story that he told me. One of the reasons why he jumped. Okay, the story is this is what he told me. He was, I think, in Paris, and he was a PBS assemblyman, and then he had a dream. The dream is he's climbing up a steep mountain, and he's climbing up, and then he saw on his left this PBRS leader, which is called Joseph Kurup, climbing up past him, and then on the right was an UPCO leader, that is Bernard Dopok, climbing up. Then he was wondering, how come they're so fast? Why are they climbing faster than him? So he looked at his back, and then he saw that in that dream he was carrying his brother, that is PBS president Joseph Pari Ketingan. So he realized it's his brother his brother is heavy, and he's carrying his brother. So then he told his brother, okay, I'll put you down here. I need to go up. Once I reach up, then I'll come down and pick you up. So he said, then he woke up, he said. And he said the message is for him to leave PBS, to go on his own political, to stand on his own political and leave PBS. So yeah, that's Dr. Jeffrey's answer.
His explanation of justifying frogging.
Yes.
Philip, at this point, I think I want to welcome the former Chief Minister of Sabah, Yong Tet Lee. Thank you for joining us. Want to welcome my relative Fauzia Abdul Titingan for joining us. Thank you for following. It's good to have Yong Tet Lee following us. He has been a long observer and the participant of politics in Sabah and really knows what's happening over there. Now, the state election is coming in Sabah, Philip. Somehow or another that has always survived in Sabah. Why is it that while people in Semenanjung complain a lot about frogs in Sabah, they say that these betrayers must be punished in the elections, but yet many of them have always got themselves elected over and over again. Why are Sabahans so for what do you call it? Are they so forgiving of frauds?
Okay, to answer your question is yes and no. It depends on the seat or even the area. For example, we have a former PBS assemblyman in Ujam. I think Chunwai, you were there, you saw this happening. So in 1994, Lajim Ukin of Klias, he jumped. But however, in all the elections that he has contested, he has won. So the voters have not punished him. The only time he lost was the last election, which was in G14. But it's not because he jumped, but it's more that I think his political shelf life has expired. Okay, that's the success story of somebody who jumped and is continuously elected. But then if you look at in 1994, when PBS fell, that 1 year later, there was a general election. And then that's where the voters, especially like in Penampang, Ranau, Tenem, they punish the party that jump. So yes and no, and I think voters are quite strange. They are hypocrites sometimes. Sometimes if they like this person, then it's okay. He's not a frog. But then if they don't like this person, that person is a frog. So voters are also have this a bit frog mentality too, I think.
Okay. We have, Philip, we have response from viewers from Melbourne and Bangkok. Hi, thank you for joining us tonight. Great encouragement from all of you from Melbourne and Bangkok. Sawadee krap. Okay, Philip, the coming state elections, what will be on the minds of the voters, given the economy slowdown, given the COVID-19 situation, and then you have this the collapse in a way, the collapse of the state government, the dissolution had to happen, the plot failed, the plot was this dissolution now. So we have these three things in the minds of Sabahan voters. What is your view on what's happening on the ground?
Okay, just to change a bit of perception, I think the government was toppled. The fact that Warisan had to, it's not a decisive move. I think it was a desperate move to dissolve the state assembly because the government was toppled. And the only way to stop the other side, which is Musa Ahmad's side, from taking over the government was to collapse it. So technically, the Sabah government had to topple itself so that it can contest again in an election. Okay, then your question is, what's in the mind of the voters? I was in Sabah last week, and then first thing when I went to, for example, I went to Kulu, I went to Kadamayan in KK. This frog culture is in the mind of the voters. For example, they told me, what's the point of having an election? Because after the election, they will all jump again. So there's a bit of political apathy and they lost the appetite for political frog. But I think after 1 week or 2 weeks, the frog issue will die down. And then once we have locked in the nomination day and then polling day, then I think number one in the minds of the voters is the economy. We are I think like in almost all states, we are badly hit by COVID-19, but especially in Sabah because one of our big revenue is tourism, as you know, because you always visit Sabah to support our tourism destinations. So the economy is the main worry actually. So for them, I think is which party or which coalition can give them hope or can give them better jobs. And it's always like that. In a survey, it is number one is actually bread and butter. Then number two will be security. Sabahans are very worried. And then now lately, Philippines is claiming Sabah again. You can hear it, read it in the news. So security is a big thing, and also the illegal immigrant. So I think the illegal immigrant issue, we call it PTI, or it will be Sabah Ori, which is original Sabah, versus photocopy Sabahan. That will be a big issue. So it's a matter of which party can convince the voters that they are protecting Sabah and Sabahans.
Philip, maybe you can share with our followers tonight, especially those from Semenanjung, of the peculiarities in Sabah. A lot of people from Semenanjung do not understand the proximity of Sabah and Philippines. For example, that in some areas where I'm told during the low tide, people from Sabah actually goes to Philippines to play football and then return on time back to Sabah before the high tide. And that's one. Second thing is that you mentioned about this photocopy Malaysians or Sabahans. Would the Project IC, which was allegedly initiated in the 1990s, where there was this purported move by the federal government and powerful figures to systematically provide foreigners with blue ICs so they can vote for a certain party. And this, of course, has affected the political equation, even the ethnic equation of Sabah. Would this continue to be an emotional issue among Sabahans? Two questions for you.
Okay, for the first question in terms of the proximity, yes, I agree with you. For example, Tanduao, I think we all remember Tanduao, that was in 2013. around 200 plus Filipino allied to the Sultan of Sulu. They had an intrusion and it lasted for a month or two. We had to bomb them to kick them out. So they're very close by actually. Philippines is just next door. Okay, that's number one. So we have a big security problem, plus we have kidnapping problem. Okay, the other question. Your question is the project IC. Okay, okay, have to be careful a bit on this one. In Sabah, we have somebody which we call Bapa Project IC. No, I think he's now a pejuang. So, okay, that is okay. We have a Project IC. So I remember when I was a journalist in.
You are what you call it, jumping around, lompat to get your answers correct.
I don't want to get sued, and okay.
You want to end up in a porridge soup.
Yes, yeah, I don't want to be in a hot soup. Okay, so yes, there is this Project IC, and it's done by Bapak Project IC. And then I remember when I was covering election, I think you were there also in 1994. PBS was screaming actually. They felt that they were at a disadvantage because there were buses and buses and buses and buses of voters who are allegedly photocopy Sabahans, and they're the one who made their. So it's the same also. Now that was 1994. You fast forward now that now it's 2020. We still have that worry actually. That's the, like I said, that's the maybe second big issue in Sabah. We're very worried that demographically Sabah has changed because of this. They call it PTI problem, and then they have a slogan for it. This PTI, they said Sabah kita punya, meaning they think that Sabah belong to them. So it's a big worry for Sabahans.
This what I call it. For those of you who are following us, if you have any questions for Philip, not me, if you have any questions for Philip about frogs or other Sabah issues, please send your questions to us. We'll try to answer them or try not to answer them. Philip, you know that in Sabah, there's always this question of ethnicity. Where a lot of people may not be aware there are 40 over ethnic groups in Sabah and perhaps 200 over sub-ethnic groups. We know that Sabah projects itself or is perceived by people from Semenanjung as a place where race do not count, religion do not count. But yet we hear things like, oh, Suluk for Suluk, Bajau for Bajau, Muslims for Muslims. Does this issues of ethnicity and religion, does it count in Sabah?
I said yes and no, because the thing now is there is no not in the good old days of Usno and Ukko fighting where it's actually Kadazan versus Bajau and then the Chinese in the middle as kingmaker. That was the old politics where a certain race was united to fight against the other race. But when you look at Sabah now, for example, the Muslim, they are divided in at least 3 or 4 parties. For example, the Muslim, they are in UMNO and they are in Bersatu and in other parties. It's the same with Kadazan. The Kadazans are now split into 4 or 5 groups: PBS, PBRS, UKO, and STAR, and then also in UMNO. So it's no longer one race against the other race. For me, in this election, it's actually those Sabahan who has now gang up, and then they are against more like I said, the second issue, that is it's more the issue will be Sabah Ori photocopy. That will be the big issue. And even to the lead up to this election, which we didn't expect, you can actually see it, the PTI issue. And then there's certain accusation of certain party that are the pelihara PTI. So it'll be a big issue.
Philip, you know, as we discussed about this frogging, voters have always felt that what can they do? That are there any laws that can really be effective to prevent party hopping?
Okay.
It would seem that the laws have been really ineffective. Efforts have been taken to take some of these frogs to court, but it has always failed. Your views on this, your take?
Okay. For me, is I grew up watching how PBS collapse because of frogs. So actually anti-frogs. Plus, I don't eat frog porridge actually. So I'm anti-frog. And then when PBS in the 1980s, when they were in power, they through the assembly, they passed this law which is called the anti-hopping law. However, they could not implement it because the federal court found that it's ultra virus, which is against the federal constitution, which believe in freedom of association. So I think even in Penang has it, your state has it, but 1 or 2 or 3 assemblymen have jumped. Has Penang done anything about it? They can't do anything about it because it just doesn't work. And I think Selangor has the same law also. So Chunwai, I'm very sorry. Whether you like frogs or you don't like frogs, you can't do anything. Most probably you just vote them out, but then they are good frogs and bad frogs, so we don't know.
In the case of Penang, they have this anti-hopping law. The 2 assemblymen who has left the party have remained as independents. So it means that the anti-hopping laws really did not work.
Yeah, it's just actually political rhetoric. They're showing like as if they're doing something, but actually they honestly know they can't do anything.
In all my years covering politics, I've realized that some of these politicians who have screamed their lungs out against party defections, but when it benefits their party, they seem to practice a different standards altogether. And I've adopted a very cynical view of politicians because that they say things which suits their interests, and they justify whatever actions that for the actions that they take which benefits them. So I take a really cynical view. Now, when you look at Sabah, there's always been political backing or interference from the federal government in past elections and even in the forming of government. UMNO has played its part in governments from the days of Tun Mustafa when he was under USNO, and Berjaya under Haris Saleh was formed to topple USNO. And then you have UMNO coming in to try to topple PBS. The scenario seems to be repeated. What is it that's different from the recent attempted coup in comparison to the previous toppling of government? This is a question from one of our followers. Thank you.
Okay, I can answer honestly. Okay, for me, it's it has happened like you say. It has happened. This is the analogy I'll give. When Sabahan fight with Sabahan, for example, in the 1960s, when Tun Mustafa fought with his blood brother Tun Fuad, it was a fight between 2 brothers. So whenever these 2 brothers fight, they are of equal strength. The draw. So what happened is one brother will call Big Daddy, and Big Daddy is Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur will come and whack the other brother, and the other brother will what? So through the years, you actually can see that, just say for example, Pyrin versus that time was Pyrin in 1994 versus UMNO. They were brothers and brothers fighting. It's within the family. But then UMNO called Big Brother Kuala Lumpur to come and bomb. PBS got whacked. Actually, PBS has not lost an election until 1994. Okay, but Big Brother came in. Then if you look at this, the year 2020, it's the same thing also. It's actually 2 brothers that are Sabahan, that is Musa Aman, the former chief minister for 15 years, versus his big rival, that is Shafi Abdal. So actually both are in equal strength. However, somebody, I don't want to name who, called Big Brother in KL, and Big Brother in KL came whack. And then that's why we have an election now. So yes, KL has always interfered.
Philip, you mentioned that there's such a thing as good frogs and bad frogs, but you also do not like frogs. So what's the difference between a good frog and a bad frog? That's okay. One question from someone here.
Okay, for me, a frog is a frog, but I know, I just answer it based on voters. For example, like voters, okay, you have like, for example, there will be one, I better don't name names, just say there's an MP, he jumped from PKR, and then he joined Warisan, okay? Then another one from DAP, and he joins Warisan. DAP will say, is very angry that this guy left. And then PKR also is the same. And also it is the same also for just say an like now currently you have like an assemblyman from just say PKR jumping towards the Perikatan National BN side. So okay, both side does it. So I think that's the problem. The voters is, oh, because he likes that party, therefore it's okay. Jumping is okay. But then when he doesn't like that party and it happened to them, they're happy. I give you one example. When Musa's government collapsed after 2 days, many people were happy because they were happy. They never said they're wrong. But then when the government collapsed 2 years later, they said, look at that, they're wrong. But they kept quiet when Musa's government fell through frogging. So that's what I mean by good frog, bad frog. It's all about perception, actually.
Yes. Okay. Now, politicians aside, would it be correct, or you have this perception that some people says that, well, voters in Sabah seems to be easily bribed, where all these politicians needs to do is to buy them, give them some money, give them some disbursement, and they will vote to the party which gives them the money. Is this a fair perception, unfair perception, or grossly unfair from the view of the Sabahan?
Okay, the answer is yes and no. For example, I come from Moyong. Moyong has maybe one of the most highly educated voters in most area, and yeah, that's why I come from Moyong. Thing, I think you can't buy the voters there. They wouldn't care actually. You can give them money, they will take, but they will still vote for the party they like, and you can see based on their trend. Okay, in Kota Kinabalu, I think it's the same. So we have like many seats that it cannot be bought actually. It's the same like Petaling Jaya or even maybe Shah Alam. It cannot be bought. But then there are rural seats. And then for me, sometimes for them is, for the voters is, you must first understand people in this Bangsa bubble, they don't understand the rural voter. For example, okay, you have just say a fisherman or a farmer, he earns 300 ringgit a month. Okay? And then for him is, every time he votes, he doesn't see a change actually. It's the same politician promising the same thing, and his life doesn't change through the 30, 40 years. Okay? So for him, when he's given a bit of money, maybe it's actually for him, he sees it as a duit tambang. He could have gone fishing, made 10 ringgit, 20 ringgit, but then he's given 50 ringgit to go and vote. And then maybe he has a bit of attachment with that person who gave him. So then he being simple, he's thankful that somebody gave him that money more than the other person maybe. That's how I see it. It's not as simple as we see that they are bought. They have also become, what do you call this, tired of politician. Yes and no for me.
Philip, I've traveled all the way to Kinabatangan a few times, and I've talked to the people there. Many of them are farmers, that they are cultivators, and that most of them, like you said, for them to leave their plantations and to travel all the way to vote is actually foregoing a day's wage. And that the MP for Kinabatangan, Bo Mokhtar, is not exactly the most popular politician among the crowd in Bangsa, that's for sure. But can you explain further, politicians like Bo Mokhtar still gets elected and re-elected, and probably in this general election will all share with us what you see in Kinabatangan?
Okay, the thing about the Bangsa bubble is they're judging Bung Mokhtar based on the Bangsa bubble. For them is, they're using their what? But the interesting thing is, if you're a politician who cover Kinabatangan, which is roughly the size of Pahang. Pahang, can you imagine? From Cameron Highlands, you go to Kuantan, or from, Rompin? Yeah, Rompin, you go to the other side, Taman Negara. That's how huge his seat is. And then I think there's poverty there. Okay, no, definitely there's poverty. So one thing about Bung is, he's the type he services his constituents. He will go there and visit them, etc., etc. So I think he has that advantage. People know him, and then people kind of Sabahans in that area like his character. Actually, the funny thing about Bung is, many people don't understand, but I've covered Bung for maybe more than 20 years, and it's for me is I believe that he is actually a very honest politician. He'll tell me straight whether they will lose or they will win the seat. I've dealt with him a few times, so I think it's just that character. He's just that kind of character. It suits his seat. But if he went and contested in Luyang or he contested in more of a urban seat, maybe he might lose. So it's more his character and he has traveled the whole his constituency.
Philip, these coming state elections, there is a significant difference. If previously we know that who will lead the opposition, this time we're not so sure. We are very clear that on one side we have Shafi heading Warisan, but on the other side we have Bersatu, we have UMNO, and you have the other parties. We do not seem to get a clear signal or a clear image as who is actually leading the fight against Shafi. Is it Musa? Is it somebody else, or what? Because we can't seem to find out who is actually leading the fight against Shafi.
Okay, good question, Chinwai. Just say 1 week ago, before I went to Sabah, and then when it was just dissolved, I had the same thing. For me, is when people ask me who's going to win the Sabah election, my answer was very simple. It's advantage to Warisan. Why? Because Warisan Plus is a united front. They have UKO there, they have PKR, and then they have DP, they have Warisan. It's more united, and then they will listen to their leader, which is Shafi Abdal. So, and then at that time, 1 week ago, you can see UMNO was fighting with Bersatu, and then it looks like it will be war between those. And then even in the Kadazan seat also, there might be a fight between PBS and Star. So that was 1 week ago. But then recently, when I talked to some things I think UMNO and Bersatu, example, they've sobered up. They know that if both of them fight each other, Warisan will win. So now it looks like there is an understanding now between Bersatu and UMNO. That's number one. Number two, who is the CM candidate for I call them opposition, which is Perikatan and BN? I think still a big question mark, and that's their disadvantage. They have to decide who. And then for me as a Sabahan, as a neutral Sabahan, I would rather have a fresh face for the government side and also the opposition side. I'd rather have somebody fresh leading Sabah because we have too much toxic fight between two big characters, and we should move forward, and then that person develop us. If not, we'll be stuck in that whole fight.
Philip, if you mention about the lack of talented young faces in Sabah politics, I think that it would be fair to say that there's also the lack of young faces at the federal level. There seems to be the lack of young people wanting to take up politics. So we have the same warlords in Sabah calling the shots. You have Musa Ahmad, who has been there for a long time. We have Shafi, who has also been there for a long time. And now we have his brother, Anifah Aman, who is heading this Parti Cinta Sabah. And I remember reading maybe some months ago, he says that he's already a retiree. He's no longer interested in party, starting a new party. And then at the federal level, we still got a 96-year-old man starting a new party. I can't understand, where are all the young people? Why are they not interested in coming up to take part in politics?
Okay, when I agree and disagree. It depends on the party. Some party, they like to rear pelihara dinosaur. I think we know that party, but there are party that I find very refreshing. Example, PKR. I've met their MPs. Nick Nazmi is young. Akmal Nasir, the JB MP, they're young. So most of these people are young. So I think it depends on the leadership of the party. They allow young people to grow. And then the other one I found very refreshing also is Sabah Star. Recently, I just found out that maybe one of their potential candidates is a 23-year-old lady from Moyong. So when I knew that she might be a candidate, I messaged her. And then I found out she just graduated and she's 23 years old. And then I just spy on her on FB or monitor her on FB. And it looks like she's quite active in the Sabah rights. So I think it depends on the party, right? Some parties just love dinosaur.
But would these young people, would they be able to survive in the rough terrain of these politicians who are older and much more skillful?
Yes and no, but I think sometimes these oldies also they can stumble into each other or whatever. And then I think this is the answer for you actually. It's now the age of Instagram. Instagram means instant. They want fast. If you're an assemblyman or YB for just say 1 term or even 2 terms, people are already fed up with you actually. And I can see this actually in like even in G14 the problem was they fielded the oldies who were there 4 terms, 5 terms, 6 terms. But I think the voters after 1 term, and things are very fast because of WhatsApp, Instagram, and everything. People are less forgiving actually. So I think sooner or later, even in this next election, people will kick out the oldies actually. Even if you're there for even 1 term, I can see people are already fed up. No, 2 terms. People are already fed up with this particular MP. And yeah.
Philip, one of the reasons why Sabah's state governments have always been toppled was probably because that the voting trend was a factor. Both parties ended up having almost the same number of seats, and it was always the shortage of 3 seats, 4 seats, or 3 seats, and that has of course led to frogging. Now, would it help if the people of Sabah actually takes a definite decision in voting a government in a very strong manner, instead of in a half-half situation, and you end up having the same story, both parties having equal strength, and they need to encourage frogging? Why is this situation always prevalent in Sabah when it comes to voting?
Okay, just let's go back to history. In 1994, PBS, because of the alleged phantom voters, they only managed to win by two seats, and then it was easier to bring them down. Then subsequently, BN won big. PBS even joined. BN. So BN was winning like almost all seat, 100%, almost. Okay, so after 1994 until 2018, we had that period of we call it stability, but for me sometimes the problem is when it's too stable, people are too comfortable, you can't kick them out. So okay, 2018 happened, we managed to kick out the same old face who has been there since 1994. Okay, so however, voters are very fragmented actually. To answer your question, even like this next election, I think maybe it depends on nomination day when you see who's the candidate and everything. Maybe we'll still have a very close fight, or maybe one coalition will win maybe 5 or 6 seats, and then that's when the buying comes in. Frogs, I mean.
So it will not be wrong for us to assume that it won't be the last of the frogging activities in Sabah, and that there's this high possibility that if the results of the Sabah state election is not really clearly defined, not clearly conclusive, then you will have the same problem happening all over again.
Okay, frogging or buying a frog only starts after the last vote is counted. So that night, it depends. If it's very close, I bet there are people out there with bags. I mean, with bags.
You know, Philip, after having covered many Sabah state elections, I've realized that the state elections has always been the most exciting because it is so unpredictable. Even a minor party that would come up from nowhere can actually form the state government. As I said that nobody had heard of Berjaya. They formed the state government. Warisan was clearly a new party in the last general election, and yet they formed the state government. Why is this element of excitement, unpredictability has always been a feature of Sabah politics?
Okay, first I agree with you, Chunwai. Sabah has this 9-year itch. I think husband and wife has how many? 9 years, 7 years? 7 years each. But Sabahan has 9-year itch. Okay, but I'm just joking. In every 9 years, a government will fall, except for the that period of 1994 until 2018. That was a very long period. Okay, I think the difference, I think, like in Peninsula, people like to whack. Oh, look at Sabah, they're always flogging and everything. But for me, is in Kuala Lumpur happened in 2018, whereas Sabahan has been doing it most of the time. So I think Sabahans are much more sophisticated in terms of knowing their politician. So I think that's the answer, actually. We are more sophisticated, but maybe what happened after 1994, the demographic have changed.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up. We have tried to answer most of the questions that have been submitted to us. My apology if we have not been able to answer all the questions, but we have tried to answer some of the questions that were posted to us. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This is our first Facebook Live talk, and that we hope that you will join me, Philip, and myself next week. We're hoping to try to get a celebrity guest. We will try. So please stay with us. Thank you. Good night for joining us. Terima kasih. Salam bahagia Malaysia. Philip, thank you so much.
Night.
Sure you don't want
good
the pork porridge, no?
No thanks. I'd rather go for beef noodle.
Okay.
Thanks for the offer.